This is Joe's Corner 76. I will be discussing the human condition. In order to change it, we have to be involved. Canada, we should be ashamed. We are blessed in this country with natural resources, lots of hydropower, the world's largest supply of fresh water, and the ability to grow food to feed the world, and enough ethically produced energy to fuel our country and aid our allies to lessen their dependence on odious regimes. We should, as a nation, be ashamed of what has happened to us because we allowed it. Be ashamed of the support we give the democracy we live in. We have a right to vote, but only 66% of us vote. We end up with a government that does not really represent all of us. As a result of our voting pattern, we have a government with a majority based on a minority of votes. We should be ashamed of our energy policy. There is no energy security plan in place. The government needs to tell the truth about wind and solar power and acknowledge it can't alone meet our energy needs. Fossil fuels are here until 2050 and possibly beyond. Modern society can't function without them. We did not build the pipelines and liquefied natural gas terminals to deliver the oil across the country so it's available to all Canadians and the ability to ship it overseas to our allies. The crisis in Ukraine has made it crystal clear. Germany relied on solar and wind, but it was not reliable enough to provide the electric power they needed. The Germans have now reversed their position and have decided nuclear power and natural gas are green energy. Our so-called green advocates need to wake up. We need to stop importing oil from countries with repressive governments, keep the money in Canada, and use the billions we save to get from exported oil to fund the electrification needed for a green energy society. Canada needs an energy security plan. Fossil fuels will be here for a while. Canada needs to build the Trans-Canada pipeline, approve tankers taking oil on our west coast, build terminals and pipelines to transfer natural gas, pressure Biden to approve the XL Keystone pipeline, and expand our nuclear options. Wind and solar are not yet reliable. We have treated our military shamefully. They are underfunded, understaffed, and poorly equipped. It seems that the current government and some former governments almost want to use the military as a social agency. Let's be clear. We have great soldiers who are well trained, and we need to acknowledge that their main mission is defense of this country. Our governments keep promising more funding for the military, improved equipment, and a spending level to keep our forces well prepared. They should not be sent into battle with poor equipment. To date, they can't settle on new aircraft, naval vessels, or helicopters. Each new government looks at the prior government's plans and finds something wrong with them. And as a result, there are more delays in getting equipment the military needs, with increased costs. We need to get with it and update NORAD. It helps defend us. The government spreads the promised defense spending over many years, so this is a new world and we can't rely on the U.S. to protect us totally. We see every day the increased presence of the Russian and Chinese military in the Arctic. Our country claims 25% of the Arctic, but without a credible deterrent, we stand to lose here, an area potentially rich in resources, with the distinct possibility of there being an open passage for ships in the Arctic. We need to protect our sovereignty. Canada needs to build a military rapid deployment force so it can quickly react to potential dangers. They need to be fully equipped to take part in a modern conflict that is highly technical. The armed forces need to be built up to the required level. Our defense spending needs to rise to 2% of our gross national product to meet our NATO commitment. Don't send our armed forces to places poorly equipped. Let's remove the shame and restore our pride in our military. Canada should feel ashamed that we have gotten to the point where we as a country, with our freely elected politicians, have allowed our freedom to be eroded. The Liberal government blindly supported the Emergency Measures Act because, as they claimed, the truckers were racist, warmongers who displayed Nazis flags, and they were prepared to overthrow the government. They claim the GoFund and other funds raised to support the truckers was largely funded by outside agitators. They used this as an excuse to freeze any bank account they chose. The police supplied the banks with the information on individuals, and the banks, without any refusal, complied with the government demands. It was claimed that the Emergency Measures Act was necessary to clear out the Ottawa protesters. Let's look at the reality versus the government claims. There were a few Nazi and Confederate flags, but the vast majority supported none of this. They were protesting COVID lockdowns. Let's be clear, there was no real violence. Even though the CBC reported there was a large foreign portion of the GoFund and other fundraisers, 88% were from Canadians, and the majority were small donations. The protesters were peacefully moved in Alberta and Ontario. This was done without the provisions of the Emergency Measures Act. Similarly, the Toronto police force prepared for the convoy coming into the city and successfully kept the streets clear. The Ottawa police had the power to act, but they failed. Trudeau dropped the act two weeks later. Even he realized he used a sledgehammer to kill a fly. It seems the government reacted to try and show how tough and decisive they were. Or was it an attempt to cover up their massive bungling of the COVID crisis? Don't you find it odd that in 2020, when the railways were blocked or when the pipeline in BC was being attacked, they did not overreact in what was a more threatening situation? Will they handle the current rail strike decisively? This is a national emergency. We have a number of bills that the government wants to use to have control of the content posted on YouTube, internet, and social media. They are proposing that government bureaucrats decide what is appropriate for us to publish and watch under Bill C-11. This will give government-appointed bureaucrats the ability to pull down web pages that are legal but inappropriate without permission from a judge. The Heritage Department has given nearly $3 million to the Policy Forum. What was the purpose of the tax-funded grant? To identify reliable reporters and coach them on the nature and form of misinformation and how to report on it during an election. The Heritage Department and the Policy Forum are advocating for an all-expense paid training workshop for 25 journalists the government identifies as willing to regurgitate whatever woke beliefs the Liberal cabinet pumps into their heads. The group of government-approved journalists would ensure a regular flow of trustworthy information, according to the head of the Policy Forum. The government implies that only by involving itself in the news process would the public's faith in the mainstream news be reported. It says that it does not involve itself in unregulated news coverage, but they have to, because if they don't, they would further distract from the public trust. With their intent to control the internet, we all should be finding this alarming. Freedom of speech and freedom of the press is being attacked. Our universities should be places for the free exchange of ideas, but they're bowing to any pressure group that they don't want an opposing opinion shared with them. Gutless university administrators won't stand up to them, nor will government stop funding schools that use this practice. The woke culture seems to rule both the media and politics, along with the cancel culture. They survive for two reasons: the pathetic response of the silent majority and the politicians who pander to these groups for votes. I am so tired of the majority of Canadians not speaking up about the woke culture. The liberal media pushes all of the positions on everything from how we are to address people to how racist and homophobic we are. We should be putting more energy into child hunger, violence against women, clean water for the indigenous, health reform, economic disparity, and more crucial issues. Are we no longer allowed to have the opinions that a man and a woman is a norm in a union? We do respect the rights of same-sex relationships, so why should they not respect ours? Canada is a tolerant society. Don't the vast majority of Canadians still believe in the freedom of thought, speech, and assembly? Don't we still have tolerance for different points of view without trying to impose any particular view? Why do we accept cancel culture and banish anyone without using due process? Canada, you should be ashamed for not standing up to this lost freedom. Look at how some are fighting to get it. You will use yours gradually, unless you say no. It will be hard to win back. Our allies have all said they would not let Huawei provide their 5G networks because the company is a security risk. To our shame, Canada has not made a decision to ban Huawei from providing a 5G network. Our allies no longer trust us, and they have cut us off from shared security information. We need to get back with our allies. They are the ones who guarantee our security. We are not going to get back on and have the respect of the world until we state our values and stand up with our allies who protect us. Our allies in NATO are under the Russian thumb for energy. They want to help Ukraine, but not freeze in dark either. Why does Prime Minister Trudeau lecture about green energy while he is in Europe during this crisis instead of saying Canada will do everything it can to get energy to them? Why is Trudeau not telling the Americans that we are the friends? We have a long and peaceful economic relationship with them. He should be saying to Biden, we need energy security in North America, and Canada is the key to this. Build the XL pipeline. Commit to building the Trans-Northern Pipeline. He should ask to address Congress and the Senate and also use social media to spread this message. We need to change our position on international affairs, solidify our position with our allies, and state what we stand for. Our foreign policy should not exist for photo ops. For shame, Canada has not done enough to protect the sale of a resource and energy companies. It is a matter of national and economic security. Canada has let China buy up companies that produce lithium, which is a key component in batteries for electric cars. Canada needs to declare that this industry must remain under Canadian control and buy back any companies that were sold. China wants to corner the production of electrical batteries. We need to stop this, and perhaps we should insist that lithium mined in Canada should be used to produce batteries here. Rare earth. Although rare earth is needed in small quantities, it is essential in the production of many technically sophisticated products. It's found in hybrid electric cars, fluorescent lights, plasma screens, handheld electronic devices, optical and medical devices, and more. Some rare elements are used in catalytic converters, oil production, and in a variety of defense elements. At present, China controls 97% of the world's production of rare earth. China has been raising duties on some rare earth aspects and reducing export quotas, leaving importing countries vulnerable to supply disruptions. Canada has significant quantities of rare earth that we should be recovering to remove for us and our allies to stop the dependence on China for this. It is shameful that the government has not been more vocal about the investigation and of foreign money being used to keep Canadian oil in the ground. Some American groups, as the Rockefeller Brothers Foundation, the Hewlett Foundation, and U.S. environmental group, the Tides Foundation, have contributed $40 million to various Indigenous and Canadian environmental groups each year. It seems that the campaign is possibly why the Northern Gateway, Energy East Keystone, and the Trans Mountain pipelines were canceled. The same tactics stopped the Mackenzie Valley pipeline, gas pipeline, and the coastal pipeline is in serious trouble. The majority of Indigenous groups approved the pipelines, and they want the economic benefits, along with many other Canadians. The federal government needs to put a stop to this funding. On a personal note, idiots like Leonardo DiCaprio, Jane Fonda, and Mark Ruffalo don't really know anything about these issues, and they should shut up and fly home, creating their huge carbon imprint. Do you not think we have things in Canada we should be ashamed of? You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Joe's Corner 76. You can hear me on Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Radio Podcast, Stitcher, and YouTube at Joe's Corner 76.